We are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We are Movie versus Film, a video podcast which explores the many different ways in which stories are told. And today we're going to be talking about three film noir classics with Jonathan Geffner, who will be joining me shortly. But before we talk to Jonathan, we're first going to be talking about Trillo and Suede, who have a film noir comedy series, which you can find on YouTube. There's 2 seasons that you can watch on there for free, which are really, really fantastic and really have the feel of film noir from a somewhat comedic angle, which I love. So Trillo, Suede, thanks so much, guys, for joining me today.
Nice to meet you, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here and an honor to talk to somebody who has such good taste to love film noir. Love that stuff.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks. I really appreciate that. So what was it about film noir, Suede, that got you interested in becoming a detective?
Well, it seems that it really is a reflection of our lives. I think I can talk for Trillo. Goodness knows he talks for me, but now I'm going to talk for him.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, so, we kind of live in an alternate universe of film noir. It seems like our whole existence just feels like it. That's our perception. We look at the world through those lenses, you know what I mean? So it's just it's an outgrowth of our existence and our way of viewing it. And so, we met each other in comedy clubs.
I was doing acting in a comedy club with another partner named Ezra.
He got tired of it. I met Trillo there, and we kind of hit it off. We had a sort of rapport together, a sixth sense. We understood each other right off the bat. Right? Wouldn't you say?
Of course I would say.
Yeah. And we had that certain je ne sais quoi. And don't ask me what that means. And then we decided, okay, he asked me if I joined the act. I did it reluctantly because I didn't want to be a traditional, playing the role of a dummy. It's very demeaning. So I got tired of that in a hurry. So I told Trillo after a little while, I'm only going to continue with this act if you play the dummy. He didn't want to do it. So that was that. But we wanted to do something together. So we put our heads together. What do you like to do? What turns us on?
So, yeah, and we both realized that we love to analyze people and figure things out and always wondering about what makes people tick and what they're doing in the clubs and everybody we met. We like to do puzzles, riddles, figure things out like that. Psychological stuff was always fascinating to us. So it was kind of a natural.
Yeah, the rest is history. I mean, we had to be detectives, put it to some good use. We set up an office
in Brooklyn where we were both grew up. And then clients started coming our way.
Just word of mouth.
Very cool. No, I can totally tell that you guys have known each other for quite a while watching the series. But let me ask you, Suede, I mean, why do you think all of the femme fatales, the many dames that have come in as clients to hire you guys, why do you think so many of them have fallen in love with you and want to go out with you? I mean,
yeah.
What makes you so, irresistible?
Well, you either have it or you don't, Robert. I mean, some of us have it and some of us don't. But, it's I have a sort of confidence, a self-confidence for one thing. And that's something that Trillo is sorely lacking in. So, the dames sense that. And they know that I'm where it's at. So I got this, you could tell I'm suave and charming and sophisticated. Of course, I'm highly intelligent also. Right. Well, Trillo's no dummy though, and he's pretty smart, So we put our heads together. It works for the cases, but as far as the dames go, well, I'm trying to coach Trillo. All these years, I've been trying to coach him so he can have a little more success with the dames, if you know what I mean. Yeah. So I think it helps.
Yeah, well, it has helped. His influence has helped over the years, and something has rubbed off.
But there's an ongoing problem he has to deal with, which is that I'm always around. So compared to me, he's always got a tough shot.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine that's tough, Trillo. And has that created a real conflict between the two of you, Trillo, over the years?
Well, not really. You know, I try not to take it personally.
The hell he doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, I have a kind of wider perspective on it.
No, he eats enough. He hates it.
Yeah. Well, okay. So yeah, I admit to some. There's some friction there sometimes about that. I feel sort of underappreciated. But then again, I do have certain things that I can pride myself in because I play the piano, and you know, I know I'm talented in certain ways, but I do envy certain personality traits of Suede. I do try to emulate that part, and hopefully some of my more reflective nature that sort of rubs off on him. So I think between those, our qualities that we share respectively, we put it all together, we're quite a team.
Very, very cool. And has any of your Italian blood, Trillo, rubbed off on Suede at all?
Well, I'm not sure how much has rubbed off on me, but a lot of my inner sat has rubbed off on him, I'm sure. That's my influence. And it's oak.
Oh yeah, all right. But as far as my Italian side, I don't identify much with it. I've got the name from my father, but he disappeared when I was a little kid. So there's a whole backstory on that.
We get into it a little bit in the web series.
Yes,
we talk about a little bit.
Yeah. So the thing is, yeah, I've got the name from Trillo from my father's side, but I grew up really not knowing him or anybody from that side. He was an immigrant from Italy, and all the relatives are back there. I don't know any of them. So I grew up with a Jewish identity from my mother's side, and always wondered and felt that big gaping hole. I'd like to connect more with the Italian part of me, but so far it's something I'm also, I guess, a little afraid to have some anxiety about delving into. Who knows what I'll find? So I just wonder about it.
He likes to live in fantasy. He doesn't really find it out, so because he likes to just live that way in his imagination.
Right. Very cool. And so let's talk film noirs a little bit, because I know we discussed some favorites of yours. So Suede, what are some film noir favorites of yours that you recommend to everyone?
Oh, there's so many great ones. I mean, well, Detour is really kind of special. Low budget. That's especially inspiring to me because we are super low budget on this web series.
Right.
So Detour did it on a shoestring, kind of, relatively, and it's a great one, classic. My all-time favorite, I have to say, is Pick Up on South Street.
Yeah, Pick Up on South Street. That's really, I love that also. But I think you in particular, why would you say?
Well, because it has kind of some important elements. First of all, it's New York noir, and I love New York, the setting for noir. For me, it's the quintessential noir city, even though there were more LA based, if you count them up, right?
Yeah, counting them up, I think that I never did, but I'm pretty sure LA has more noir set there, right? New York, not as many, but a fair number. And those are in New York. I share that sensibility with Suede.
Yeah, so the New York setting, because it's crowded, congested, and the loneliness, the isolation, the feeling of being all by yourself, alienated amidst such crowds, and the tall buildings and all that, and the narrow streets, claustrophobic feeling. That all is quintessential noir. That's how I think it's the perfect setting. LA, I think it was coincidental because Hollywood was there, so it was convenient, right? So it was in their backyard. But I think New York is ideal. So there's Pick Up on South Street has a lot of those kind of locations. From the claustrophobic subway, it begins there. The opening scene, right in the very crowded subway. It was really hot with all kinds of tension. And sexual tension because the film noir, the femme fatale, Candy, that's the character's name. What's her name? Jean Peters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, she was really hot stuff. My kind of dame. We were introduced to her there, and then so that setting, and also the grungy waterfront where the grifter lives. Right. We meet him later.
Skip McCoy.
Yeah, that's the guy. And getting back to Candy, the character, for me, she's the ideal femme fatale because we can tell she's there are different kinds of femme fatales, different variations.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there's a sort of classic femme fatale. Well, people have different ideas sometimes of what the classic one is because there are variations of them. I mean, it's some kind of an alluring, seductive, dangerous woman, but they take different forms sometimes. So for you, this particular character of Candy, played by Jean Peters, is your favorite.
Yeah, because we know the score with her, and she knows the score. And she tells it like it is, kind of thing, and so that very sassy. I love that sassiness. Yeah, so she's hot as hell. So that's well, I gotta admit that's a big factor. Why I love that film.
Absolutely, no, that's a great one. But what about you, Trillo? What are some favorites of yours?
Oh, there's so many. Of course, Double Indemnity is probably top of the list for a lot of people, and for me too. It's certainly right up there. One of the very top. That hits all the marks, I think, of various criteria of film noir and does it, in very expert fashion. But if I had to pick one right now, my all-time favorite is probably Laura. And
yes, that's even some people don't even think it's noir. It depends how fussy you are about the categorization.
Yes. That's true. Yeah, because Laura, the character is not. Really a femme fatale in the classic sense, but she is an alluring young woman who's central to it. And I think that for me, it has a kind of a lushness as well as a suspense that's a little different from most. Again, New York noir. So for me too, I love the fact that it's set in New York City, and the detective Mike McPherson, he comes on the scene investigating the murder of this beautiful young woman whose painting hangs in her living room there, and he becomes infatuated with the painting of her, so falls in love with the woman who he believes was murdered.
Of course, it turns out that it was somebody else who was murdered, and so he winds up investigating the murder of somebody else
because he meets the real woman. What was her name?
Laura.
Yeah, Laura. That's right. Sometimes my memory fails me. So it becomes a different kind of suspense, and as the romance builds between the detective and the actual character of Laura, and he's investigating who killed the actual suspect, the actual victim, and who that was. But it's done all in a very kind of a masterful way. The way the story builds and the characters are presented, the array of characters are done great, and the casting is great. It has a lot of that kind of very atmospheric, sad, melancholy feel. Yeah. It's got also, I think, the greatest film score of all, in my opinion. That the Laura theme song is fantastic, and in general, the whole film score is extremely alluring and sets the mood and creates the mood in a very powerful fashion. So I think that's why I'd say it's my favorite.
I know the real reason, couple of reasons that Trillo's not emphasizing here.
Well, you mean why I choose it? Why do you think?
Well, first of all, Trillo has a history of becoming neurotically involved with all kinds of inappropriate dames. So he can identify with that obsession of the detective.
All right. I guess I'll admit to that.
And also, it has that confusion at first about what's real and what's not real. Is Laura real? Is she just an illusion? Is she just a dream? And Trillo here lives in a dream world, in a fantasy world. He has trouble distinguishing between reality and illusion. So he identifies with that.
Okay, I guess that's, if you want to psychoanalyze me, who better to do it than Suede? He knows me better than anybody else.
Oh, for sure. I'll have to see Laura again, because I actually haven't seen that in quite a while. And that's Otto Preminger, isn't it?
Yes, he directed it. Yeah.
Otto Preminger directed Laura. I'll have to check that out again. Very quick questions. If you had to choose between Humphrey Bogart, Sterling Hayden, or Robert Mitchum to partner with as a detective, who would you both choose between those three guys if you had to pick one?
Well, we can answer that easily because we've actually discussed that. So we're on the same wavelength over here, right?
Yeah, easy. Humphrey Bogart. We both love Bogey most of all. because I think he's. I mean, those others are great as well, but Humphrey Bogart has that a special kind of. I don't know. I can't find the words. Well, how would you say it?
Well, the thing about him is because that's it. Yeah, but to be a little more specific this time, he's got a certain that toughness, that street knowledge kind of personality and character in each of his roles, but it's always mixed with a certain vulnerability also.
Yes.
You know, you can see there's a lot of nuances in his acting, in his characters, and you can see that he's got a certain kind of sensitivity, a vulnerability underneath, and that's very appealing, that combination. So that's really cool, we think.
I agree. Yeah. Well, good choice. And this will be one of your favorite for both of you. For femme fatales, if you had to pick between any of these femme fatales, which one of them would you kill for? Lana Turner, Jean Tierney, or Rita Hayworth?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, first of all, I don't have to kill for any of them because they all fall for me.
Oh,
well, but if I had to choose, I'd still say Jean Peters.
Okay. Yeah, he's still fixated on that pickup on South Street, Jean Peters.
All right, I'll throw her in. All right. I'll accept that.
All right, so how about me? I'll try to choose among Rita Hayworth and Jean Tierney and
Lana Turner.
Okay. Oh, tough, but I'll go with Jean Tierney, Laura.
Yes, I agree. Good choice.
Yeah.
Perfect choice. And now, very, very quickly, a couple of rounds of noir or not. So, Sweet Smell of Success, noir or not noir? What are you guys saying?
That's a tough choice because I never saw it. How about you?
Yeah. Okay. Coincidentally, I never saw it also. So,
yeah, we're not.
Okay, I'll throw you another one. Lost Weekend, noir or not?
You see that one?
Yeah, long ago I saw that. I'm trying. He's Ray Milland. Is that Ray Milland?
Yes.
Alcoholic grad. To make a judgment about it, I'd have to refresh my memory. Okay, from what I can remember about it, I would say noir. I'd put it there. I'm feeling a little generous today. Yeah.
Me too. And lastly, this is one that would really piss people off. Citizen Kane, noir or not?
I say not.
I say not also.
Okay.
Because I think it's well, how would you say, or why would you say?
Well, it doesn't hit enough of the buttons for me, and it's a little bit maybe too self-conscious.
A little self-conscious. Well, I don't know. How about Robert? I guess I'm sensing you would call it noir. Yeah.
Citizen Kane, that's a tough one. It definitely had elements of the self-destruction, but noir, I don't know. I mean, it's people. That's one of those films people are torn on. So yes, just going in the chat box. Great 1951. Michael, hello, Michael says Citizen Kane, no way. Fair enough. Fair enough. That's one of those films that are long disputed.
Yeah,
but we will be. Go ahead.
We go that way.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's what we both feel. That not quite enough of the buttons. Even though you didn't ask us, but I want to ask you, Casablanca. That's something that people also disagree. So should we? First,
I would say no. Even though it has a crime element, and but it has it doesn't quite have all the ingredients of self-destruction, or it has a lonely, alienated central character. But I'll have to say no. I would say that's more of a romance. I'd say that's much more of a post-world, during World War II romance.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Yeah, we agree. Not quite noir. It's a great movie, one of our favorites.
Me too.
Not quite enough of the noir characteristics.
Yeah.
Yes. Very well said. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. I know you have lots of clients.
We do have
A lot of
Holy
femme
crap! Look how
fatales.
late it is.
Oh yeah, we do have an appointment right now with a client.
Yeah, we're at the Knish store.
Yeah, we're meeting a client at Schmutzig Puppig's Knish store, and so that's where we have some of our meetings when we want to get out of the office, and so we have to hurry.
Yeah, this is important. We can't be late because she's a looker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I know
Okay.
exactly what you mean.
Okay.
Well, best of luck, and I hope that doesn't create too much of a conflict between you guys. And I know Jonathan is somewhere there, somewhere in the wings.
Oh, that guy, Jonathan Geffner. Yeah, he's a fan. Yeah,
Yeah,
he hangs out a lot. He helps helped us with the stuff we're doing with setting up the web series and stuff like that. But he's harmless, but he's a little nuts. You know, he's kind of delusional. He thinks he created us. He's actually quite a nut job.
Okay, but I think he's here in the next room. We'll get him. Maybe you want to talk to him a little.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to Jonathan for a bit. But thanks, guys, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
You too. Take care. Hello to everyone in the chat box. Thank you again, the Noir channel. We talked during the week. Thanks for tuning in. Michael, again, thanks so much. And here is Jonathan. Jonathan, how's it going?
Yes, good. Nice to meet you, Robert. I was overhearing that conversation you had with Trillo and Suede.
Yes.
It's really interesting. Yeah, those guys are really, I'm very proud of my creation, frankly. I know they think they created me or something like that, but it's been something that has been my top priority in my own career, is pursuing the Trillo and Suede project for quite a while.
Yeah. No, I definitely want to get into that after we talk about these films that we picked today. For anyone tuning in, today we're talking about 3 film noir masterpieces. We have Touch of Evil and Force of Evil and The Woman in the Window. So why don't we kick it off with Abraham Polansky's Force of Evil, which is also stars John Garfield. So how do you feel about this this noir, John?
Yeah, I think it's great. I had seen it many years ago once, and then when we discussed the films that we would want to talk about today, I watched it again the other night, and I think it's another New York noir. I heard Trillo and Suede expressing coincidentally the same sensibilities that I have about this. That we particularly,
small world, isn't it?
Yeah, would love the who would have thunk it? New York noir, and John Garfield is great in his role. There's a lot of elements here. The opening shot is great from above to see Trinity Church through the alleyway, or the narrow street down on Wall Street.
Yeah,
and it has very snappy dialogue. It's fast paced, moves very fast rhythm. One thing about it, the character Leo, who's John Garfield, plays the lead, Joe Morse, attorney, kind of shady attorney, who's in with the mob and represents the mob, or some what's his name, Joe what's Turner is the name.
To take over the numbers racket.
Right. But one little tidbit, I guess, is that his brother, who's called Leo, I mean the lawyer, the lawyer's brother, Leo, who has a small rackets operation, and is about to get squeezed out by the big boys unless Joe Morse can bring him in with the big boys, the big gangster. And Leo doesn't want to do it, but he has a heart condition, so his heart is fragile. And in real life, ironically, John Garfield had a heart condition, which ultimately killed him at a young age. But also, it has 2 important. It has the not important, but it has a lead of Doris, is not a femme fatale really, but she's actually quite the opposite. The innocence represents purity and innocence and goodness, and her character is his last hope, of Joe Morse's last hope of kind of finding a way out of the the bad path that he's on. So the contrast between and the tension between those two parts of himself and these two characters is very draws in. It's alluring, and it's done great. I don't know what else. What kind of things come to your mind about it?
Well, I was, yeah, no, that's all very well said, and I was really fascinated by the fact that, you know, these two brothers who, I mean, it's quite clear that they grew up in poverty, as Louis, John Garfield's brother, says. You know, he had to work to take care of him so that he could go to law school, and of course, you know, obviously he's just had no luck, and he's, you know, again, you know, a classic film noir theme of lack of morals, or not necessarily lack of morals, but not having strong morals and making choices out of necessity or out of greed. I mean, in his case, the brother is much more out of necessity that he chose to, you know, take on this small numbers racket. But then you look at John Garfield, who's you know, much more of a classic noir character, who's a successful lawyer. He has no reason to be corrupt, but he wants more and more. And he even says, "I'm doing it for money," and this obsession of money, and the, you know, the whole post-World War II consumerism and those attitudes, capitalist attitudes, especially at that time. So I was quite fascinated, because the whole thing is really for nothing. I mean, he's, you know, he keeps talking about making it legal, this whole gambling numbers racket to have a legal lottery. And I kept thinking, well, how, you know, it's clearly not going to be legal. You know, he's forcing everyone who wants to not be involved anymore, who works there, because now it's going to go from a tiny little you know, corner gambling lot to like this only one in the city. So that, you know, that bookkeeper character, you know, of course they squeeze him, they force him, because he already knows so much that he's, you know, he's forced to be involved. And Garfield basically turns into a gangster, even though he's denying it and saying, well, you know, it's just a little bit of I'm happy to choose a little bit of corruption if I'm not mostly corrupt. You know, he's always finding ways to justify it. And I just thought that, you know, that obviously created that rift between the brothers, you know, and like, why are you doing this? And, you know, self-destroys himself, destroys his brother. It just destroys before it's too late. I mean, that's as I'm sure you know, a classic noir theme of failure, men or women, you know, failing at the end of the film, which was the total opposite so much of before film noir, where it was so purely idealism and oftentimes purely people winning and who are good, and the good guy and the bad guy. But even these characters, they're not necessarily all, I mean, particularly the brothers, not so much the gangsters, they're not all bad. They're just you know, particularly Garfield, he gets so caught up in it, and he justifies what he's doing. And then before he finally has a moral conscience, but then it's too late, you know? So I found that quite fascinating. I think that's quite relevant with people in general. You know, no one's just good, no one's just bad. We're all much more complex.
Right. Or most of us are. Yeah, I think there's a small percentage of psychopaths out there who I don't have much faith in what the good, if there's any good part at all. But the vast majority of people are not all one or the other. I agree about that. And those are the interesting. That's what makes characters interesting too. Is when you see that there's some kind of a struggle, even if they're more good than bad, or they're more bad than good. But but if there's some kind of an inner struggle, a moral dilemma that they're grappling with, that's what people can relate to, because we all have some of that. We all grapple with some kind of moral dilemmas in our life, and we have different pulls on us from different directions that sometimes pull us into things that we realize before we knew it. Oh, we are doing something that really is against our values, but why are we doing this? But here we are, we're doing it. Yeah. And, you know, I was trying to mention before, the character, I think she's called Doris, the the girlfriend, the budding relational potential girlfriend that he's wooing, who works for his brother, but she's really very innocent. So the conflict in classic or iconic noir, it's usually the femme fatale who draws the protagonist into danger, seduces him into something that is risky, dangerous, bad. Whereas she's the one who's trying to pull him away from it. Yeah. And it's his own was it neurotic desires, as well as background difficulties, traumas in life, whatever it brought him to the point that he is now, that he has this burning desire to succeed at any cost, and he overlooks morals. So that's what's drawing, the gangster world is drawing him into it, and she's pulling him out. There is a smaller role played by Marie Windsor as a more classic femme fatale, right? And she's is a very sultry, breathy voice, but so she takes on the role, but she's not as important a role as Doris. But she does have some lines which I made note of.
The one who worked for the brother, right? The young woman, yeah. Is that who you're referring to?
No, I'm referring to who is she? Turner's wife.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's Turner's. I had it the other way around. That's right. Yeah, that's right. Turner's wife. Yeah, she was. Her character was sort of along the same lines. Because she even that scene where she's, especially when he's getting bugged, when he realizes, and again he thinks it's no big deal, and she's the one who's like, you what are you doing? Like you just like he thinks he's invisible, like he thinks he can do anything.
Yeah, she's more superficially an iconic type of femme fatale, more seductive and sultry, that kind. But you're right that she plays sort of a reinforcement to the Doris character, because she doesn't really play a dangerous role in his life. There's a bunch of good lines that I remember. At one point she slinks over to him and she says, you could spend the rest of your life trying to remember what you shouldn't have said. And it comes at one of those pivotal moments where he's grappling with whether he should do the right thing or not. I wish I would have liked to see more of her, because she's I think she's
only really, in a few scenes.
There are some other movies, I forget which, she does play the lead in a couple of others, but she didn't get the kind of chances that I would have liked. I think that her potential was, it's because she's great at playing that kind of classic femme fatale. A little the trivia thing, that she was very tall. I read that she was 5'9", and for a leading lady femme fatale, that's very tall, especially in those days. And and Garfield, I looked it up because it looks fairly short. They list him as 5'7", which means he was probably 5'6", so at most.
Yeah, probably.
So I read that she had told some interviewer that in the scenes with Garfield, she had to bend at the knees, like crouch, sort of bend her knees, so she'd be lower in relation to him. Otherwise, she towered over him.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't read that little tidbit. I agree. Her character was certainly very, the fact that there was two central female characters as opposed to one in a lot of wars. I found that quite intriguing. I wonder if the only thing, it's quite a short film. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. I do wonder if perhaps seeing more of the earlier years with the brothers would have had the audience more empathetic, or maybe grown more emotionally attached to them. I mean, you get the point, obviously, of what have, why they are the way they are now. But I wonder if that would have added any layers to it. Did you feel that, or did you feel it was done, perfectly as it was
I agree with you. I would have liked to see a little more of the backstory between the two of them. I did feel a little wanting of that more. So yeah, I think it was the script was very taut. It was very fast moving, which is good.
Very fast,
but
yeah.
So but I don't think they would have ruined that necessarily. They could have done that without ruining the pacing. If you'd given us a little bit more of that, would have been nice. That moral dilemma between the two of them. One thing that struck me, there's one moment where Joe is trying to persuade his brother Lou into joining the conglomerate, or whatever I forget what they call that, of the the big boys of the gangsters.
Yeah, the numbers racket or something along those lines. Yeah.
And so they're having an argument about it, and Joe says, the money has no moral opinions. And his brother answers, I find I have, Joel. I find I have. And noticeable to me is how the script gave him to repeat that line, which normally, especially in a very consciously tight script, which is a good thing, every word counts kind of thing. Like you don't want to go repeating lines, unless it's for a very important reason. I think that was, when I heard that, I was thinking, that was a good choice to repeat that line, because they want to really make that a strong point there. Because it's that's a sort of a pivotal point in the movie too, where you see it seems like he's never going to go along with this.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you really understood that one had the thinnest of morals, John characters, and clearly his brother Louis was in an older age, and all he's been through, he was just done with it. But because of a sense of consciousness, but also what I found, so I've never seen that actor who played the brother in anything else, but he was really good.
Yes.
Just his demeanor, and you could feel his self-loathing and his sadness and his anxiety, which of course is another. Late night anxiety is another big film noir thing. The sense of sorrow, it was quite remarkable. And even at the end, he's still trying to help that bookkeeper, even when he really doesn't, when he doesn't have to do that, right? So I thought that was quite appealing.
Yeah, a sympathetic character, and just enough that we can buy it also, because they didn't overdo it. They didn't make him into a saint or anything like that. You can see that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, because he's still, that's what's so great about it. He still goes along with it, right? Like, even though he said he's not going to, there's a lot of ambiguity, because he's so firm in not going, but then he does. So it's a matter of not having any options, and I think in his case, I can only imagine that was what his life was often, a lack of options. And so he just, he can complain about it. We do that all the time, right? We complain, we're not going to do something, and then we do it, because that's what we know, or that's what we feel we have to do.
So and the fact that he does finally feel he has no option but to go along with it. That's all the more poignant because of his adamant refusal. Where, I said just a moment ago about how the script gives him that line again. I find I do have moral values. I do. He repeats, and after that, and he still buckles after that. So it's more poignant after that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's such a terrific movie. I know Scorsese is a big fan of this, and you can see the influence, particularly with the brothers' relationship, and of course, peoples whose morals are in question and come to some kind of consciousness or not, is such a Scorsese thing. Raging Bull and Mean Streets, and those two in particular, you could certainly see the influence. I'm just going to go to the chat box, because some people have been leaving comments. The Noir channel, we were talking during the week. He digs our outfits. Thanks so much. Thank you so much. Femme fatales come in all shapes and sizes and hair color, he says. Yeah, absolutely. Carol Shaw Sandground says, you got to see the femme noir and real star of the series, Mrs. Levinsky, aka Aunt Sarah, owner of the Last Exit Club. She has that je ne sais quoi and more else besides. So he's talking about, for anyone, she's referring to Jonathan's web series Trillo and Suede, which again, you can find on YouTube, and I'll put the link in the description box for where you can go and see that. And yes, hello again to Michael, who says, yeah, Laura is a beautiful film to look at. Wonderful set design. Yeah, absolutely. I have to see that one again because it's been quite a while. Yeah, I want to go into Touch of Evil, Orson Welles, Charlton Heston, and Janet Leigh. How does this one hold up for you nowadays? How do you like this one?
Well, this one I had never seen until the other day after we were talking about what we're going to discuss, and I guess you had suggested that, and I said yes, because actually I should see that. It's one that I've missed, so I finally did just the other day, and I liked it very much. I'd say that even though it's not the kind of the setting, the urban setting that I associate with film noir generally, that we usually associate, it's not New York or LA or San Francisco, but it is it's very atmospheric, and it lends itself to that feeling, that noir feeling very much of the kind of the grungy atmosphere, and it was Tijuana. It's supposed to be Tijuana, right, border of California and Mexico, right? Yeah, and that so the atmosphere works, and the characters work. Orson Welles' character as the corrupt cop is great, and Charlton Heston, of course, was miscast ethnically. Today that would be a big deal.
Yeah,
but
I was thinking that too. I thought, oh my god, because they literally tan him and everything, right?
Yeah, it's actually
make him look Latino.
Right, it was almost blackface. It was tan face, right? So yeah, that's a little embarrassing to watch these days. Yeah. But in the context of its day, people didn't have the same consciousness, obviously, about that as they do now. He did a good job in the role, though. I think he played it well, and the opening scene and the final scene blew me away. The opening shot and the final scene. I mean, the opening shot, I didn't realize that what a classic shot. I'm sure people who are more film experts than I am are all familiar with that. But that's an amazing tracking shot that it opens with. And I don't know how many takes it took or how many days to shoot that thing. But it's done so beautifully, and everything just works, and it creates this breathtaking feeling to begin the film. And then the end of the film too, the final scene when they're alone in the final confrontation in the I don't know what the area is, an oil rig there. I don't know what exactly. There's the stream and the oil rig, and it's this very dangerous, dark, depressing atmosphere, and the cinematography, in general, the darkness, like he plays with darkness as right to the edge, like everything is so much on the dark side in the whole film, which fits the atmosphere that is being created so well, and just enough. He lets us see just enough so that we know what's going on. But I love that the overall dark cinematography, shadows.
Yeah, no, it's even if people even if you doesn't care for Orson Welles' films, you can't deny that he was so innovative and could shoot things so beautifully. But to me, this film is, I've seen it a couple of times, and I watched it again the other night, and I think it's much more about Quinlan, who Orson Welles played, than anyone else, because it centers around You know, the fact that he's this, you know, racist, bigoted, corrupt cop who, you know, you find out that his wife, you know, was murdered and strangled, and he never found the killer. And so I thought that must have been, again, and it's ambiguous, that must have been why he turned the way he was, because he has this reputation for being a great cop, and no one's questioning that he's not.
That's a good point. In fact, it's even said by who says that at the very end, one of the last lines.
Yeah, his partner. Yeah, I forget his name, but
it says he's a great cop. Oh, to Marlene Dietrich, who plays the madam of that brothel, right? And she's there in that last scene because she had a certain bond with him, with Quinlan, and he said, one guy says he was a great cop, and then she answers, but a lousy detective, or was it vice versa? I forget, but I know there's some kind of.
Oh God, yeah, no, it's such a famous quote. If someone in the chat box is listening, if they know, please leave it in the comment box. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I may have made a note. I don't know if I've made a few notes, but I can't find it now. But anyway, that's it's some kind of. It struck me at the time of indicating, communicating some great dichotomy in Quinlan, that you know, he was very he was very good at what he did at investigating, but he also was corrupt and evil. I mean, he was and immoral. The great irony at the end, I think, is when it was revealed that he actually. Sanchez, the guy who we framed, the Mexican we framed for the bombing that we see in the opening scene, that car bomb, and we know by now that Quinlan routinely frames people. If he thinks they're guilty, he'll just frame them. He'll plant evidence, and that's what he routinely does. So we know that he's completely immoral and corrupt, but then it's revealed that actually he was right, that he framed him, but he was guilty anyway.
Yeah, you know, it's funny because I always accepted that. I always thought, oh, you know, yes, then he was right. But do you wonder if that guy confessed because they were interrogating him to such extremes? I wonder if he, you know, that happens so often, and he even says on the phone, break him. I wonder if they beat it into him. You know, I never questioned it until my last viewing. I don't know if that came to mind for you.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It crossed my mind. I guess maybe because I wanted to believe that irony. I love the irony at the end.
Yeah, we want everyone to be good, right? Even if they're bad.
Yeah, well, at least to have that, you know, at least that he was right. I certainly would never consider him good after what we've seen of him, but that, well, at least he got the right guy. But you are right that I see what you mean, that we don't know for sure. He could have been just you know, broken into a false confession. That's possible. I somehow think that the filmmakers wanted us to, the scriptwriter, Orson Welles, whoever was ultimately responsible, wanted us to assume that Sanchez really was guilty, because otherwise they wouldn't have made a point of it at the end. But that could be just what I want to believe. So I guess we don't know for sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, he has those great ambiguous moments that are really open for interpretation, the kind of stuff I really love. Even the fact, like, you know, they're telling you that he frames this guy in order to solve this crime quickly, and also it's very much rooted in his racism. You know, he will blame it on someone, you know, Mexican, and then when Charlton Heston steps in to say, "I saw you," well, not that he saw him plant it, but there was nothing in that box. I think, you know, they're telling you know, and he even says to Charlton Heston, "Oh, well, you know, you're saying that, you know, to defend your countrymen."
Yeah.
But I, you know, they're saying that it's, well, he's racially motivated, which I think is true. But I wonder if it's if something in his subconscious, and it's a little more complex than that, because as Charlton Heston found out, he's been framing people for years, and I wonder if that had to do with the fact that he could never find the killer of his wife, that he just sort of thought he'll never be able to figure out anything else. So I'll just frame it, destroy everyone, and of course destroys himself. I mean, he was also an alcoholic. Did that pop into your head, or did you just see that as racially motivated?
Oh, well, as soon as when it was revealed about what happened to his wife, then it was like in retrospect, aha. So
Yeah.
that must have been motivating him all along.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that was an important element in it. One thing before I forget, I wanted to mention that struck me is that I'm looking up the name, Joseph Kalea. I'm not sure how to pronounce the actor's name, Kalea. I think he played Quinlan's partner, right?
Yeah.
Sergeant Pete Menzies, I think was his name. And to me, he kind of stole the show. I thought he was terrific.
I agree.
Yeah, and
Really good.
also he takes on the role, even though he's not the lead, but he's still, his role's a little is more supporting. But he really takes on the role of the traditional film noir protagonist, because he's the one with the moral dilemma. I think with more of the moral struggling, the grappling. We see more of that in him than we see in anyone else.
Yeah, because he can't accept that Welles could be. He knows Welles is. I mean, how could he never have known any of this? Like, it's like he obviously deluded himself and convinced himself that Quinlan's got a clean record. He's the greatest cop. But now it's unavoidable.
Right.
So that's true.
And we see him turning when he's faced with this evidence by Vargas, the Charlton Heston Mexican detective. He confronts him with this irrefutable evidence of what a shit his partner is and how corrupt he is. I mean, which, as you say, of course, Pete knew that, but he kind of was able to live in denial by making justifications. But it's finally, it's too much. It's just like already, like, okay, he can't deny it anymore. And then we see for the rest of the film, of his scenes, how he really is morally grappling with this. And we see the wheels churning, and he plays it beautifully, I think, to the point where he agrees with Vargas to trap Quinlan by secretly recording him. So he goes along with that, and risks his own life to do that. But I think that it's a wonderful transformation that we see in his character, and that is more reminiscent of more often we see in the main protagonist. But we see him going through it more than anybody. Like Quinlan, we don't see that. That doesn't happen. We see that he's basically he's a bad guy, but but he has some maybe sympathetic aspect comes out in him, that we see. But still, he's a bad guy. But with Pete, we see it much more of a torn character, and that's very gripping, I think, the way he did it.
That's a good point. Yeah, it's it's so chock full of complex behavior told in this crime story, which is challenging, because even with a genre film, because even recently my co-host and I were doing crime drama films, and often because they're so plot heavy, it's less on the psychology. But what was so great about film noir was that they managed to really find that balance of like a simple crime plot, but told through this very Freudian psychoanalysis and emotional relationships that I find really, really fascinating. And I'm not surprised that Orson Welles was someone who did it so brilliantly. I can't think of another film that plenty of them center around complex issues, but this one I find is perhaps one of the more thought-provoking. Just every character is so distinctive. As much as I love Marlene and Dietrich in it, I couldn't quite place the point of that character, other than perhaps was of better times when he knew her, and that she was sort of she even says to him, "You have no future," when she reads his palm, right?
Yes. Well,
Yeah,
to me,
did anything pop out to you about her that was you thought drove the story forward, or?
um, I thought that she played a purpose. Her character played a purpose in giving us a little bit of backstory with him
Yeah,
in an interesting way. Without, I didn't feel it slowed down the story because
yeah, no,
she
not
was
at
an
all.
appealing character, and it gave us that little bit of humanization of him.
Yeah,
Just a tidbit, of that.
yeah,
They had something between them which went beyond his being a client of the brothel. They seem to uh, have some kind of fondness lingering between them. So it's like it just
yeah,
humanized him just a bit. So I thought that was a good moment for that when that was introduced.
yeah. No, I love that scene, and I love that she was the one who ended it too.
Mm.
Was brilliantly done. Michael in the chat box has a trivia question for us. Who was the beautiful blonde in the convertible in the opening scene? I imagine he's not talking about Janet Leigh. Beautiful
Right.
blonde in the convertible.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. Does that stand out to you as anyone? I'm not sure who he's referring to.
Oh, yeah. Well, the one who was the victim of the bomb, right? Because she and her
Yeah,
boyfriend were in that car. That's where the bomb
yeah.
went off in their car, right? So she's a
I don't remember them even showing those people though, or perhaps they didn't. I don't. Maybe
yes,
it must have been so brief.
yes, because they show them.
Yeah,
They come up because they're in a convertible, so they come up to the border guard, and she says to the border guard, "I hear a ticking in my head," and then they say, "Go on, like
oh,
that."
right, that was them.
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't put that together.
Yeah, but I don't. They actually answer the question. I don't know who the actress was. No.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. You'll have to let us know, Mike, because I'm not sure at all. But yeah, no, it's a fantastic film, and of course, there's so much, great trivia on this. I'm sure you read up on. Did you get a chance to read up on all the different cuts and conflicts in the
oh yeah,
post-production?
a little bit about that. Yeah. So since I said I only saw it once the other day, and I saw the 95-minute version, the shorter one. I know a lot of people say that you got to see the longer version. Is more aligned the Orson Welles cut, or closer to what he wanted. So I look forward to finding that version and seeing that too. Are you familiar with both versions?
Well, I think I've only seen. Well, perhaps I originally saw the shorter one, because the one I watched again the other night was the hour and 45-minute one.
Oh,
so
somehow
what you watched was what, 90 minutes?
Yeah, I think it was 90, 95 something. But there's one that's 111 minutes I read. So that's
Oh, that I haven't seen.
So,
yeah, no. I've seen the hour 45. I think the DVD has all of the different versions.
I don't know how much I missed, but what I saw, there was a lot of the script writing was visually, cinematically clever. I wrote a couple of reminders to myself in that final scene when Pete is trying to get Quinlan to confess to his corrupt police work while Vargas is recording remotely. And there are several moments where there's like tension where we think that Quinlan has nailed his partner Pete in what's going on. Like he turns to him and he says, "Is that why you're wearing that thing?" And so of course we're thinking, oh, he realizes he's got a recorder, and there's this so a pregnant pause. And then he says, that halo over your head, so that it deflects the moments, but it's great suspense building for that moment. And then just a few minutes later, Vargas is hiding in that oil rig or contraption above that. I think it's and Quinlan looks up, and we think he caught a glimpse of Vargas. The game is up with the attempt at recording. And so when he looks up, he says, "Look at that up there." And that another pregnant point. He says, "That's oil pumping out money." So. Then there's one other I forgot what the third one was, but all in that one scene. So I love these little moments where the lines build suspense that we think the gig is up, but no, it's something else.
Yeah, he keeps kind of, when you think they've got him, they don't, or when you think that Welles has figured it out, he hasn't, and it's sort of back and forth, which is quite clever. But I'm not sure if you read, but you know that when they started editing this film, Orson Welles was, you know, editing it with the editor, and they weren't getting along, and then he had to go and act in something, Orson Welles, or appear on a talk show or something. And then at that point, the studio just took it over and edited it the way they wanted to, and they wouldn't even let him in the editing suite. Like it's because they hated what he was doing. Because he was so unconventional. Like you even see in the movie, like a scene would start and then go to another scene and then go back. And they hated that because, they were so used to the conventional way of storytelling.
Yeah.
Which now that's like, that's pretty common.
Yeah.
But they hated it so much. And, because he had to move on to other projects, I think he let it go. And there is that memo that he wrote out to the editor, the studio, to say, I spent a long time on this, and these are my notes, and, please consider them. And they didn't until years later, in the 70s and the 90s, there were people took his notes, and they were able to get access to the footage and edit it as best they thought that was the way he saw it. And I believe that is the hour 45, the one that both of us are talking about. I think that is the one. The 2 hour 10 one, I don't know about that one.
Not 2 hour. I don't think 2 hour 10. What was it? An hour and maybe I misspoke, or it was what I read was an hour and was it like hour 51? Hour 51, something like that. So
hour 51. Okay, yeah. So I think that must have been the one I saw. I don't think you saw the one that was the studio, because I don't even think. I think the one that everyone sees now is the one that they re-edited in the 70s and in the 90s.
Yeah. Hopefully, I didn't miss out too much, but I want to get to the bottom of that. Yeah.
Because you're talking about a lot of moments that I saw, so we must have saw pretty similar edits. But that's I mean, a lot of people consider that the last film noir from early 40s to 58. Also because of the blacklist. I mean, a lot of those wing and were communist and were blacklisted. So that was another reason why it started to go out of fashion. There was no one that knew how to make those kind of stories. That talent or that eye for it. So
and you can see it.
But it's
sorry, you're cutting out sometimes the audio and video on my end, so I'm missing some of what you've.
Oh, sorry. Okay,
saying.
If I'm cutting out a lot, let me know.
Yeah. Well, you're
okay
at
now?
the moment. You're okay. Yes, you are right now. Okay.
Okay.
So I was going to mention the music is very telling to me. You can see the difference in these few years. Like this was 1953, was it? Touch of Evil? It was in the 50s. This is 56?
7.
Oh, 57.
Yeah, 57.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah. So it's and from the other noirs in the 40s that we were discussing, you can tell the passive time in the music was striking to me. A young Henry Mancini wrote the jazz score, sort of, and it's not even used that much. But when it's it's only at certain points. But when we have it, it's a very kind of tense, hard driving kind of jazz style, and it's very different from the soundtracks or the scores to the Force of Evil, or Laura, these other 40s noirs that are more typical, which is much more kind of lyrical. Even if it's hard driving, even if it's conveying tension, it's more in I don't know, classically influenced or maybe a Broadway style influenced version. But this one sounds like a lot of time has passed. You know, like we're on the cusp of getting into early rock and roll now. It's just around the corner, that kind of thing. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah, it did quite. It had a sharper edge to it. I found it was very. You know, I'm not articulating. It's more of a visceral feeling I get from it, but it certainly grabbed you and complemented the film really, really well.
Yes, it fit very well, but it was also all the more striking because there was not a lot of music during the movie. You know, a lot of movies. Well, generally, there's music in the background to accentuate or emphasize the emotions they want you to feel, you know, one way or the other. And when it works well, then that could be a big plus, make all the difference. And sometimes it's gets in the way. But in this one, actually, there's very little of it. For long stretches, it occurred to me, hey, you know, there's no music at all. It's just you know, just the natural, whatever the soundtrack is, but not music. So when we do hear that jazzy soundtrack on occasion, it's more striking too, like, oh, you know, makes more impact.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. That may be why there were certain moments where it just really popped because there was so little of it.
Yeah, and when they do have music, most of the time it was incidental to the scenes. It was oh, there's a word for this. I forget what it is. When it comes out of the actual scene, it's not imposed. It's not like layered on. It's like in the brothel, there's honky tonk music being played on a radio or something, or a record player. You know, it's like music that's within the scene. You know, it's not a score. So it's like when we hear finally soundtrack music, that's very rare moments in the film. So it's very striking.
Yeah. No. Very, very well said. The actor in that convertible that Michael is pointing out is Joey Lansing, who was a popular blonde bombshell in the 1950s. Doesn't ring a bell for me. I'll have to Google her. And he also mentions that earlier. This was an earlier comment. This is one of the best ventriloquists I've ever seen. He's not talking about me, I'm sure.
He was talking about Orson Welles.
Yeah. Yeah, Charlton Heston. And yeah, our last, this was Jonathan wanted to talk about a film that I hadn't seen before, The Woman in the Window, 1944, with Edward G. Robinson. Why'd you pick this one today?
Well, this film, I think it really grabbed me. I watched it years before, and then I watched it again the other night to refresh my memory about it. And I liked it just as much as the first time. I think that it, let's see how I could concisely go right to the main points about it. First of all, Edward G. Robinson is perfect for the role. And he plays a psychology professor at, I think they call it Gotham University or Gotham College. And he's, so again, another New York noir, which I'm partial to.
Yeah.
And he is pulled into a life and death situation. And the way it's done really draws us in. And particularly, I like the way his character is very together. He's very erudite, intelligent, well-established in his life, cultured. And it begins with he's sending off his wife and 2 children to Maine for summer vacations, the beginning of the summer. So they're going off for an unspecified amount of time. This feeling is probably most of the summer. And so he's going to be alone in New York, and he goes to a club. He hangs out with, men's club with 2 friends, 2 of his best friends. One is happens to be the district attorney, and the other is a doctor. And they have dinner together, and they're kibitzing about, well, don't get into trouble now that your wife is gone, but it's sort of just jesting, because the subtext is that no one thinks he would play around or get into trouble of that sort. But they also comment on this painting. There's right next to the club. There's a store window, an art dealership where in the window is a painting of a beautiful woman, and they both, oh, you see that painting? Oh, how can we miss it? They all talk about, oh, I wonder who that intriguing woman is in the painting. And so after this kibitzing around, he leaves the club and he stops to look at it, and sure enough, the woman appears over his shoulder. He sees her reflection in the window, the actual woman in there, and she says that she often stops by just to see people's reactions, and so she invites him for a drink, and of course he's at first hesitant, but he is eventually drawn into something he never would have expected, because back at her apartment, which she invites him to, her secret lover unexpectedly appears and sees this other man there in his apartment and attacks him. And in self-defense, Edward G. Robinson's character, the psychologist, kills the attacker, the other man, with the scissors that the femme fatale, played by Joan Bennett. Joan Bennett, yes, Alice Reed is the character's name. And so then it's a question of the rest of the film is trying to get away with it, because he's afraid. This is a very compromising situation, because to prove self-defense might be difficult, and especially with the mores of the times, I think, to remember when we're talking about 1940s and the mores then. This is a woman who was having an affair with this man, very clandestine, and he turns out to be a very powerful, wealthy man, but she doesn't even know his true identity. Anyway, her morals would be put under the grill. He knows that, and taking that into account, plus, of course, I guess primarily he figures his wife, he's going to find out that he was with another woman, and even though it was just a flirtation at that point, but still that was the situation. So his life is going to be in tatters. So he decides with the character Alice Reed, that they'll try to get away with it. And what's striking to me, one of the many things that's striking, is how he goes about very carefully planning to get rid of all the clues that cops won't be able to find, because he has some knowledge of all the possible clues that the investigators will be able to find, and he methodically tries to cover all his bases, and yet everything he does completely fails. It blows up in his face, because he didn't think of so many things. He becomes flabbergasted when his DA friend turns out to be involved in the investigation and imparts to him the ongoing investigation. So one by one, he's drawn into finding out what's going on in the investigation, even to the point of visiting the scene where the body is dumped off of the Bronx River Parkway, I believe it is, in the woods there. And so everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And what I love is to see the disintegration of this man's psychology, because he starts off so in such a high position, comfortable position in society, and he becomes broken when it seems that he is not going to get away with it. More and more inevitable that he's not going to get away with it. So I love that. Also, there's a comparison, obviously, to Scarlet Street, which was filmed the next year, and also stars the same Edward G. Robinson, Joan Bennett as the femme fatale, and Dan Duryea as a shifty grifter character. And so it's almost a rewrite of the script. I mean, there are some differences. One of the differences is that in Scarlet Street, the Edward G. Robinson character starts off in a much lower status position, so that his fall from grace is not as severe. It's okay.
I haven't seen that one.
Oh,
was that also Fritz Lang?
No. Wait, actually, maybe it was. I think it was. Okay. I think it was Fritz Lang as well. I
haven't seen that one still.
Yeah, I have to check that, but I'm pretty sure it was, now that you mention it. And that's another great one. In fact, to me, I'm not sure which I like better. I'd have to rewatch Scarlet Street now to compare, because they're both great in slightly different ways. But great. One of the different ways, as I mentioned, is the fall from grace being different and more of falling off a cliff in this one. So all the characters are played beautifully, I think, very well cast. Joan Bennett was also perfect in her role as this type of femme fatale, not as obviously dangerous as she was in Scarlet Street,
right,
where she's a very like much more obvious from the start kind of manipulator. But here, it's much more of a question: is she really manipulating him or not, or how much is she hiding? And we're not quite sure. At least I wasn't quite sure. Like, did she? Was it possible? I wonder how it struck you. But was it possible that she even planned this? That she knew her lover?
I thought. That's where I thought it was going, and then it doesn't. Which I thought, oh, it was still really, really good. The fact that it was just one of those unfortunate, wrong time, wrong place, wrong decision by Edward G. Robinson, and again motivated by, I like that conversation that him and his friends have right before he meets the woman, where they say, oh, as you get older, life changes, and it's not like when you're young, and it makes him feel, like time is running out, and I think that scene with the reason, again, morals in question, he goes into a woman's late at night, has a drink with her, and then goes into her place, and nothing happens between them, but something could have happened, and it's only because that jealous lover came in and the fight started, and all that kind of thing. But of course, you see a guy go lower and lower and lower, fail, make mistakes, and then as a result of that blackmail that happens, which was quite clever, I must say. Not that I'm a criminal, but I just thought, I was like, oh, that guy would think of that as a way to get money out of it. And then he's willing to then kill that guy, right? And here's a guy off the top who was not shady. He was like a grandfather, he's like this.
That's a good point you bring up. I think a pivotal point in the movie when he makes that decision that let's also kill the blackmailer. So it reminded me of Breaking Bad, the character. Do you know the series? Where it starts off like just a nerdish chemistry professor or teacher, and then he becomes more and more gangster, and like. It's like, wow, to think that he actually had this in him, So same thing with similar with Edward G. Robinson's character.
Yeah, that's what's so appealing about it. It reminded me of a film over 40 years later, like Fatal Attraction. It had elements of that. It's one of those. It just happened, right? It wasn't like the guy planned it. He was in a good marriage. And he met the wrong woman and made the wrong choice, and then obviously that's a lot darker, right? But I could see the influence and comparison there. But it's also really, really good. I'll have to see Scarlet Street. And Michael in the chat box said, Fritz Lang did do both. Of course, he was like one of the biggest influences on this genre that, of course, started in Germany and then, got into America. I was curious, just a couple of questions I had. I mean, so many people have a hard time defining what film noir is. I mean, what does it mean to you?
Oh, well, I know people argue about this. So I think there's not one definition that everybody agrees on. So I think it's a combination, a collection of elements that if there's enough of them, then it qualifies as film noir. But the classic elements are a protagonist who is troubled, who is beleaguered, who has some kind of a moral or burning personal dilemma, who has some huge secret, something that is he's very burdened with. And I say he because it's invariably a man. And then there's classically also a femme fatale. French for dangerous woman, a fatal woman actually.
Right.
So an alluring woman of one sort or another, usually a beautiful woman who is seductive but dangerous. She also has is very often usually manipulative in one way or another, or for one reason or another, and lures this unsuspecting man into some kind of dangerous life or death situation. There's also cinematography is an important element, right? Yeah. Darkness. It's black and white. Now there's also neo-noir, which can be in color in more recent years. Yeah. But it has to, even if it's in color, it should sort of capture some of the feeling of the black and white, which is the stark contrast and playing with shadows, very shadowy lit cinematography. And then there's also the general kind of gloominess, desperation figures into it a lot. Feelings of hopelessness. Of course, there's rays of hope. There's one needs to have a feeling or scrambling to find ways out of the maze, but it's generally feeling caught in this kind of trapped in this kind of a maze. To me, I find it sort of comforting because one might think that, especially from my description of it, that it's just a very depressing genre. I don't find it that way at all. I find it sort of liberating because I find that is a cathartic. If it's a good film noir, I always feel sort of like catharsis in seeing it, because even though it's usually sad endings or defeatist or kind of endings, it still feels like, I guess, for one thing, when you're watching it, it's maybe like why some people love horror films. I'm not a fan of horror films myself, generally, but a good horror film has that effect, I know, or can have that effect. Is that like, well, it's cathartic. It's like, well, it's my very fears, yes, but I'm watching it where I know subconsciously that I'm safe. So it's kind of it's a way of experiencing it, getting out that, and getting past it. So I tend to be very melancholy myself, my own nature, my spirit. I'm kind of tend toward melancholy, and so I think I love sad music. I love Chopin, the romantics of classical music, Chopin and Brahms and Rachmaninoff and Schumann and all those very expressive, achingly beautiful music. So in one way, it's kind of it's desperately sad music, but it's also a desperately beautiful and evocative and a way of sort of releasing emotions. So I feel that from watching it, a satisfaction I get from film noir is similar.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and I feel the same way, and it certainly is, particularly nowadays, because of the style. It has a much more romanticized view. At the time, it was, they were considered melodramas and crime stories, and often were low budget. They shot, which I love, which they shot on the streets. And I was watching an interview with one of the directors who did a lot of noirs back then. He thought, it was actually so easy to not have some of the lighting sometimes, which lent to the style. And also because of the budget restraints, it's like, oh, we could just cast a shadow over there because it's an empty hallway. We can't dress up. But obviously it to have the shadows on their faces and the blinds, the shadows of the blinds, it led so much to what they were experiencing emotionally. But why do you think it holds up so much today? I mean, this is something that people are still writing about, fascinated about.
Yeah,
hits a nerve today. Or is it more the style, do you think?
Yeah, I don't know how much of a nerve it's hitting with how many people. I mean, I still think it's not so widespread, as in popularity. I'd actually like to know how many people actually are into film noir these days. But for those who do appreciate it, there is a significant number, I guess, of aficionados who. Like me, like us, who appreciate it. And I think it's kind of an antidote I feel like to a lot of the kind of false sugar coating kind of things, and like false narratives, and superficiality. To me, it's like I get the feeling about film noir. It counteracts a lot of stuff in society that is so full of fakeness and the false hope, false glamour. You know, and this is sort of like film noir always announces to me, just cut the crap. You know, like this is what's really going on. There's a lot of shit that happens. That life is full of all kinds of difficulties and challenges and hardships and struggles and sadness and loneliness and alienation. I mean, it's like, yeah, we don't want to wallow. I mean, I don't want to wallow in those feelings, but it's there. No matter how much we try not to get into it, it's going to happen to all of us. There's tragedy. Every one of us is going to experience heartbreak and tragedy and loneliness and alienation, and at one time or another, and you know, probably many times. So you know, it's what life has a lot of, and so you know, it presents it in a way that is artistic. It makes it kind of transforms it into something that we can sort of view from a certain distance, and the stylization of it also helps to make it feel sort of safe to experience it, and to live through it, to grow out of it, to grow with it. You know, so that kind of stylization is very, very appealing to me. You know, the fact that it's hyper real. It's not exactly, you know, it's not a slice of life exactly.
No, not at all.
Yeah, because it is, you know, that stylization. People don't really talk like that the way they do in the, you know, but it's a kind of microcosm, a condensation of a lot of these feelings that people experience in a way that that just grabs you and makes you feel like, okay, you know, this is something. Okay, now I'm going to watch other people go through all kinds of terrible stuff and see how they struggle with it, and see you know, what wins out, the good or the bad within each person, and what you know, what goes on in the overall milieu that they're in, and just like what can come out of all this. So to me, that is I think of it as a sort of antidote to all kinds of fake stuff.
No, that's really well said, and I think that is both why people love the style of it so much, but also because the feelings and the conflicts internally will always be relevant for all the things that you described. Just on Trillo and Suede, I mean, I love the ventriloquist film noir comedy web series. How did you come up with the idea for that? Was it purely from a love of this genre, and of course being a ventriloquist and mixing the two? Is that, or how did this come about?
Yeah, well, those two things converged because I was already a professional ventriloquist for a few years when I, in the mid '90s, having already fallen in love with film noir, discovered that, and watching as many as I could, was thinking to myself, what can I do next with my ventriloquist career that would be something different, more challenging, like go off in a different direction, something that no one else has done as far as I knew. And so I thought, well, I love film noir, and I'd love to put myself in the middle of a film noir. I'd like to be in a film noir or neo noir. I'd like to recreate that world somehow. And so I how do I use ventriloquism? Well, I'll play the detective, and my partner's a detective. So there we are. We're a duo detective, a detective duo, ventriloquist and his wooden partner. And so then I thought about, you know, the details of the characters, wrote the characters and the situations, and, you know, a script. My original script, the first one I wrote, was a feature film, which I called The Hong Kong Canary. And long story about trying to get that produced over many years, and I never was able to find the way to produce it. I came close many times. In fact, with several other feature films featuring Trillo and Suede, I came close a number of times, but never quite was able to do it. But eventually, I did the web series. I decided a couple of years ago that I need to find some way to make this dream come true. So I self-funded 2 seasons of it. Meanwhile, Robert, you've frozen for a while. I don't know if I've frozen as well. So if anybody is watching, if I'm still live, I don't know if you see Robert as well, because I don't see Robert or hear Robert. And Robert, if you hear me, I don't hear you or see you.
Sorry about
Robert. Okay, so I lost you for a while. I don't know how long you lost me.
Yeah, no, just literally the last minute. Something with my internet just went shaky, but I got it back. This is like live theater, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
Yeah, you were talking about in the mid '90s. That's how you wanted to put yourself in a film noir, so you combined the two, basically.
Yes, and so I made myself a detective with my wooden partner, a detective duo, and my first feature film was The Hong Kong Canary, which I wrote and tried to pitch and get produced. Long story with that, how I was never able to get it produced, but I came close many times, very frustrating. I wrote several other feature films with Trillo and Suede through the years as well, and a TV series, well, the pilot episode and treatments. And anyway, after many almosts of getting things produced, it was very disheartening. And I finally decided 2 years ago that I'll just self-produce something, and I decided on a web series, because at least it wouldn't cost as much as a feature film. So I self-funded the 2 seasons of Trillo and Suede to finally get something out there. And now from here, I'm looking into what else I can do to parlay that into finally getting backers or a studio interested in one of these feature films, or a way of getting a season 3 produced, because without now funding from outside other sources, then I'm not going to proceed, because 2 seasons out of my pocket and that's it. I'm finished with that. So I'm looking for ways now to continue.
And how did you assemble the cast? Did you know a lot of those people, or were they just casting calls? Because I thought everyone was so great, you know?
Yeah. I was very pleased with my actors for both seasons. They were casting calls, just in New York City. Anyone who was non-union was welcome to answer the casting call, because of course it's a non-union production. I mean, I paid everybody, but you know, I was out of my own pocket, so I had to keep you know, all the fees were low, but everybody, cast and crew, did get paid, and the casting calls netted me a cast that I was very pleased with. I knew one person who appeared in both seasons. Zoe, the character of Zoe. If you've seen it, she appears in several episodes in each season, because she's my daughter, so she was easy to cast.
Yeah. Well, Zoe was the girl who worked on the crew, right? Or
well, partly she has a role there, playing mishandling a camera, but she's also she appears as a client. She's a teenage girl, very sassy, and
I remember,
attitude problem, and she makes her first appearance because her uncle, Rabbi Norman, has gone missing, and Rabbi Schmutzig-Puppik turns out to be involved in his kidnapping, or it's more to it than that, but anyway, she's the client. So
yes.
So I got her really cheap. I didn't pay her.
Worked out well.
Yeah.
No, but I really enjoyed it. I watched the first 2 seasons, and it captures a feel for the 40s and 50s noir. I mean, the voiceover, even that opening shot under the bridge, even though you're doing color, it still has a feel for it in a comedic way. So yeah, it's really.
You mentioned the voiceover, and I forgot to list that when I was going through trying to remember what are all the elements of film noir. That's also one of the iconic elements of voiceover of the main protagonist. And as we discussed, not every film noir has each of these elements.
Right.
But when I created the web series, I wanted to use all of them as much as I can, to make it as sort of classically or reminiscent of classic noir as I could.
Yeah. No, it worked out very, very well. And you have an Indiegogo campaign, right, to raise.
Well, that just ended, so
Okay.
it did not succeed. I was not able to raise the money I need for season 3, so I cannot proceed. I'm looking for other ways to do it right now. Hopefully, we'll find a way. I will probably do a short film soon with the funds that were collected, but I have to figure out, what I can do with the funds that were collected. So I'll do something with that. But yeah, the main thing is to go on with the season 3 and get one of these films produced. So still shopping it around.
Okay, very, very cool. And I best of luck with that, because I think it's a great project, a real genre bender, that's for sure. And again, for those of you who haven't seen Trillo and Suede yet, I will leave the link for season 1 and 2 in the description box, but you can find them on YouTube. Well, Jonathan, thanks again for your time, for talking about these movies with me and talking about noir and introducing me to Trillo and Suede. Yeah, I had a great
pleasure.
time. Yeah.
On behalf of Trillo and Suede and myself, we had a great time talking with you today.
Great. No, thanks so much. And for those of you, if this is your first time on our channel, please consider subscribing by clicking the subscribe button right next to the description box below, and then click the bell in order to get a notification every time we release a new video or go live. And if you're watching this now as a replay, you'll see the Movie versus Film logo right there above me on your top left. And you can click on that, and that will also give you an instant subscription. Okay, well, Jonathan, thanks again. And thanks again, everyone, for your comments and questions. We'll see everyone soon.